Shalom, brothers and sisters. Grace be unto you and peace from Yahuwah the Father and Yahusha the Messiah, his Son. This is Brother David coming to you again to bring you the Sabbath and the feast days. Wrong. This is part 10, and this is about the Sabbath. Look at the graphic here. Rest on the Sabbath. Sunset on Friday to sunset on Saturday. Who created this weekly Sabbath that flows from month to month, week to week, year to year, without restarting? Hillel II, with his intercalations. I came from the church. In the church, they told us that the Sabbath was Sunday. I challenged them. I asked them to show me any place in the Bible where the Father has said that Sunday is the Sabbath day, or that the first day of the week is the Sabbath. They came back at me with their church mumbo jumbo. They said, well, the Messiah rose from the grave on the first day of the week, and it is a commemoration for his resurrection. I said, okay, show me that in the Bible where it tells you to do that. Of course, they got upset. They didn't want nothing to do with me anymore. They thought of me as some type of a heretic. So, of course, you know what the next thing is. You have to leave the church. Now I come to the Israelite culture. I find out that they were keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, at least the day that I thought was the seventh-day Sabbath. And I thought that we had it right. You know, the mindset is that you have 6 days of labor, 1 day of rest. The mindset in the Israelite culture is that it must flow from week to week, month to month, year to year, without any restarting or any interruption. Okay, I fell for that too. Then one day my father awakened my mind and said, that's not my way. I started my research to find out, is it his way? That's where we discovered that Hillel II is the one who fixed the Saturday Sabbath. So then what is the Father's Sabbath? When he tells you to begin your month by the new moon, it has to have a beginning. Then he tells you all you have to do is look up, because if it's by the new moon, that's in the sky, not a calendar. Anyone who presents you with a calendar can have you to worship at the God of that calendar's day. You know that's what calendars were created for, so that they can find a day of worship for their gods. Yahuwah's way is different. Guess where his calendar is? It's in the sky. Cannot be altered, cannot be changed by him in any way. Now, if you're keeping the Saturday Sabbath, you're in a strong delusion, believing a lie. Hey, just a few months ago, I was there, but the Father awakened me, and he has sent me to try to awaken you. You're not forced to do this. It's just that all you have to do, look at the information, check it out yourself, see whether it's true. It's hard for you to bypass this. If you do, you're in trouble. Because the Father has revealed himself in his creation, in nature. All you have to do is go outside and look up, and he'll show you how his days work. Now, the challenge has been someone to show me another way in the scripture to count the days besides the new moon. Show me. There isn't. It's the only thing that is stated, and it is repeated over and over again. I did one about the new moon. You see how many times he says it? That was just a small tidbit of what he says about the new moon. It is everywhere because it is Yahuwah's way to count the days. This calendar here, Pope Gregory's calendar, that's not it. That weekly Sabbath will flow straight in from one month to the next. Look at Sunday, 31st, coming from December, going directly into Monday, the 1st, connecting the weeks. There's no beginning of the month. You see Monday the 1st, that is not the first day of the month. Isn't Sunday the first day of the week? But yet here on this calendar for 2018 in January, Sunday comes from December, and then it just flows into Monday, and Monday is the first day of the month. There is no restarting. There is no beginning. This thing is without end. It's consistent. And that's the model that they taught us that we were supposed to follow. That your Sabbath has to flow every week, 6 working days, then a Sabbath. But when you look in creation, brothers and sisters, you don't see that model, do you? When you look in history, you won't see this model from Pope Gregory. The models started with these calendars that deceived the whole world with the Julian calendar. And that was based on the lunations of the moon in the beginning. And then it changed later. Look at the Creator's calendar. Every month you have your new moon's day. It restarts your month. Then you have your 6 working days and your Sabbaths. You have 4 Sabbaths a month. And it is fixed in the sky because you have 4 quarters. It flows in perfectly. Hold it. If you are the creator of the universe and you've created those timepieces in the sky so that time can be kept, and then you tell them that this is how you find my Sabbaths, start your month by the new moon, how is it that you're going to go to the Gregorian calendar to find the Sabbaths when he said go to the new moon? We're going to go back to the Gregorian calendar. How deceived we are. Let's look at an argument at one of the brothers who is deceived. This brother has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they're all Hebrew Israelites, brothers, our people. The people with the largest audiences, when you check on them, you find that there's some real big problems. Let's address one today. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1 to 3. Here's the argument. The brother said David hid in the field for 3 days. After he left from the field before Jonathan, he went to Nob before Ahimelech, the priest. When he got there, he ate the showbread. He's saying that this whole thing started from the new moon. So he counted 1, 2, 3 days from the new moon. And then he said he got to Nob. So there was only 3 days before a Sabbath day was. You got me? Now we want to check that out. Let's see if the brother knows how to count or if he has reading comprehension. Now, this is what you must do behind everyone who is teaching you, especially when it comes to complex things like this about the Sabbaths, the feast days. You have to check on everything because these are the things that can snatch you away from Yahuwah and put you in the hands of your enemy. Verse 1. And David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, What have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? Verse 2. And he said unto him, Yah forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing either great or small, but that he will show it to me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. Verse 3. And David sware moreover and said, Thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, Let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as Yahuwah liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. Verse 4. Then said Jonathan unto David, Whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. Verse 5. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the 3rd day at even. So you see, the evening is when the next day, when your day ends. So he says the 3rd day at even. That means that's 3 days that David hid in the field. When was the starting point? From the new moon. What was David supposed to be doing at the new moon? He was supposed to be sitting with the king at the feast. This was their custom as Israelites. The new moon's day was a feast day. Let's drop down to verse 18. Then Jonathan said unto David, Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. So this is twice that we hear about this new moon. First David spoke about it, then Jonathan spoke about it. David was supposed to be seated with the king at this feast. It was the custom for the Israelites, not for us, because we have forgotten. Verse 19, And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly, and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself, when the business was in hand, and shalt remain by the stone in Ezel. Now we're going to drop down to 42. Read the whole thing so you can fill in the blanks. I just want to get these key points out. Verse 42, this is after the 3 days were finished. Jonathan came back to see David to give him a report. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace. For as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of Yahuwah, saying, Yahuwah be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. What city was that? Gibeah, where his father's palace was. Jonathan came back to tell David, Hey man, you were right. Pops is getting ready to take your head. I think it's best that you get out of here, but we're going to keep this vow that we have between us. So David arose and departed. How many days was it? 3. When did it start? From the new moon. Let's continue. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 1 to 3. Then came David to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, why art thou alone, and no man with thee? Verse 2. And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee. You see, David is lying here. And I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. Verse 3. Here we go, brothers and sisters. Now, therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in mine hand, or what there is present. All right. David arrives at Nob. David was 3 days in the field. So if David is at Nob speaking to Ahimelech now, he was 3 days. He had to travel to Nob, right? So from what the brother is saying, he was only 3 days before the Sabbath happened. What day was David speaking to Ahimelech? Did he forget about this day? He didn't count day 4. Let's continue. And the priest answered David and said, There is no common bread under my hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. So David asked the priest for the hallowed bread, the showbread, the bread that no one was supposed to eat except for the Aaronic priesthood. Verse 5. And David answered the priest and said unto him, Of a truth, I'm telling you the truth, Ahimelech, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. Note, David said he hadn't had any relationship with women. But look at the key here in red. Since I came out. How long was it since you came out? About these 3 days since I came out. Hold it. He was hiding 3 days in the field. Here it is. Now David is telling about another 3 days. It took 3 days before David could even get to Nob. Nob is about a 74 miles journey. That's exactly 3 days journey. So now instead of 3 days, we have 6 days. What about the day that David is standing here talking to Ahimelech? We know he asked him for the showbread. It is obvious that the priest was taking the old showbread from the last Sabbath away from the Holy of Holies. Let's see if that's right. Verse 6. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken away from before Yahuwah to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. All right. So we know that there was no other bread there. We know that the priest had taken the showbread away. Now I wonder, what day would it be that the showbread is supposed to be taken away? We know that the showbread cannot be baked on the Sabbath day. Get that in your mind. The commandment is to bake what you shall bake and boil what you shall boil and store up whatever. The priests had to obey this rule also. So if the priest was taking away the old showbread, it's obvious that the showbread that he's going to put back in front of Yahuwah was baked already. Let's look at the commandment in Leviticus. And thou shalt take fine flour and bake 12 cakes thereof. 2/10 deals shall be in 1 cake. And thou shalt set them in 2 rows, 6 on a row, upon the pure table before Yahuwah. Verse 7. And thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, even an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. Verse 8, here we are. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before Yahuwah continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. So he is supposed to set in order the showbread every Sabbath. Verse 9, and it shall be Aaron's and his sons, and they shall eat it in the holy place, for it is most holy unto him of the offerings of Yahuwah made by fire, by a perpetual statute. So now we have to figure out what day was the showbread to be baked, and we have to figure out what day does the priest go in to replace the showbread that was taken away. Jewish Encyclopedia. The word is showbread. Rabbinical tradition has preserved specific details concerning the preparation of the showbread. The cakes were kneaded separately, but they were baked 2 at a time. To give them the required shape, different forms, according to Maimonides. Of gold were used. One form for the cakes while they were still dough, another while they were in the oven, and a third after they were baked, in order to prevent their being broken or spoiled. Here's your reference. According to some authorities, the kneading and heaping were done outside, the baking inside the sanctuary, a distinction for which the commentaries fail to assign a reason. There's the reference for that. And the Sabbath prohibition not being suspended. What prohibition is that? Bake what you shall bake, boil what you shall boil, on account of the showbread. The baking took place, as Josephus reports, on Friday. There's your reference. Okay, what day is Friday? What day was Friday for us when we were keeping that Saturday Sabbath? Preparation day. Friday is supposed to count as your 6, the end of your 6 working days, your preparation day, when you prepare everything for the Sabbath. Did you prepare it on the Sabbath? No, you prepared it before. Sometimes you got all of your work done right before the sun started to dip below the horizon at dusk. Okay, so now we have an idea of what was happening in the ancient times, because Josephus is an eyewitness. He has an eyewitness account on what they did at the temple. Now, we need to see when they replaced the showbread. Because remember, Ahimelech was removing it, and there was no other showbread there. He was doing this on Preparation Day. Jewish Virtual Library. However, the Septuagint Leviticus 24:7 adds, and salt. And according to the halakha, the frankincense was to be salted before being burned on the altar. The loaves were changed every Sabbath. On the basis of the relevant passages, it may be presumed that the priest did not have to go into the Holy of Holies, especially for this purpose, but would change the loaves when he came there on the Sabbath at the appointed times. That is, either in the morning or at dusk. What does dusk mean, brothers and sisters? It's when the sun just begins to dip below the horizon. That's when your Sabbath begins, at dusk. So he was taking away the showbread. We know it was the 6th day because he had just baked it. And he was supposed to come back and replace it on the Sabbath. If he's doing the work at the altar, believe me, he would not be talking to David at this time and giving David the showbread to eat. So he was in the process of taking away the showbread to replace it on the Sabbath at dusk or in the morning. Now look at this. 3 days in the field. 3 days since he came out. 6 days. The 7th day he speaks to Ahimelech, who is in the process of changing the showbread. David asked to have the old showbread for food. When is the showbread to be replaced? On the Sabbath. What day would that be? Day 8. How does the new moon way of counting the days work? The new moon day is a feast day. It's a worship day. It's a day of sacrifice. It stands alone. After the new moon, then you have your 6 working days. Your Sabbaths are always on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th. So if the Sabbath was on the 8th day, it's exactly according to the lunisolar calendar. Are you seeing what we're facing here? Why are they doing this? They're fighting against Yahuwah. They say they are fighting for him, but they're not. All you have to see is the truth and the proof. You have to prove these things yourself. You have to go in and dig deep so that you can see, because these lies can only be presented and they can only be upheld if the hearer does not go in and investigate it, brothers and sisters. So you see, this passage lines up more to the new moon way of counting the days than it does according to his understanding of how the scripture works. Everything is twisted. Everything is fighting against you to keep you from going into the kingdom. Let's look at another argument. This is Exodus chapter 16, verse 1 to 3. Even though it's a silly argument, I put it in here because they have given us more ammunition. If you're going to use the scripture to try to prove the Saturday Sabbath, that Saturday weekly Sabbath, you'll never find it in scripture, but you'll find Yahuwah's way of counting the days perfectly. So I put this argument in because it's going to prove that the luni-solar way of counting the days was the only way that they used in these days. Now look at this. And they took their journey from Elam, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. Now the brother says that they were traveling on the 15th day. No, they were not. He said when they got there, they had to set up a camp. It never said that any place. Look through the whole passage yourself. Read, brothers and sisters, and you'll see. The only thing that it says is that they arrived on the 15th day. When does the 15th day start? In the evening, correct? So they got there right when it was dawning towards the next day of the Sabbath. Now, watch what's going to happen. Verse 2. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. I wonder why. Verse 3 is going to tell us. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to the mighty one we had died by the hand of Yahuwah in the land of Egypt. It's saying, in plain English, why didn't he just kill us in Egypt? When we sat by the flesh pots and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So they were murmuring against the mighty one. They were murmuring against Moses. Why? They didn't have any food. Could they prepare? No, they could not. They couldn't kindle a fire. They couldn't bake. They could not boil because it was the Sabbath day. Remember, the Sabbaths on the lunisolar calendar are the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. Let's continue. Verse 4. Then said Yahuwah unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no. Note and remember, they just arrived in the evening, dawning towards the 15th day. They could not bake, they could not boil, they could not kindle a fire, they were hungry. The people murmured against Moses. Moses went back to speak to Yahuwah, and the master of the universe says, I'm going to rain down bread from heaven for you, Moses. And then the people should go out and gather a certain rate every day. He says he's going to prove them. He's going to test them to see if they'll walk in his law or not. So they must have knew that the 15th day was a Sabbath. That's why they were murmuring. You didn't give us any food. We've been traveling all this time. Now here it is. We arrive here on the Sabbath day. We can't eat and we're hungry. Verse 5. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. So the Father says he's going to rain down this bread for them for 6 days. And on the 6th day, they have to gather twice as much, because the next day after that day would be a Sabbath. Verse 6. And Moses and Aaron said unto the children of Israel at even. Look at the word. In the evening. What day was Moses and Aaron speaking to the children of Israel? On the 15th day. So he says, in the evening of the 15th day, then ye shall know that Yahuwah have brought you out from the land of Egypt. Verse 7. And in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of Yahuwah, for that he heareth your murmurings against Yahuwah. What are we that ye murmur against us? All right, so you understand that they were murmuring because they were hungry. Now look at what the Father says. He's going to rain down bread in the evening. Moses and Aaron were speaking to the children of Israel on the 15th day. Why didn't he rain it down right then and there? Because it's a Sabbath day. If Yahuwah would have rained down the bread then, wouldn't the people ran out and start to gather? And after they gathered, what did they need to do? Then they would need to kindle a fire, go chop down firewood, start their fire, bake, and boil. The Father did not do that. He did not tempt them on the Sabbath day. He says, I will wait until the evening when it's dawning towards the first day of the week. They're going to have 6 days to gather this stuff, but on the 6th day, they shall prepare, they shall gather twice as much, and they shall store up the rest of it for the next day. You got it, brothers and sisters? Verse 13, and it came to pass that at even, the evening, the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around about the host. He didn't rain the quails and the bread down until the evening of the 15th, after the day was done, when it was dawning towards the first working day of the week. We know that because he says, I'm going to test them to see if they'll keep my commandments. He's not going to break his own commandments. The 15th is a Sabbath. So he waited till the evening of the 15th, dawning towards the first working day of the week. That's when he rained down the quails so that the people can go out and gather all that they needed. Verse 22, and it came to pass that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. You see that? So 6 days from the evening of the 15th. Listen, read the thing yourself. Do your own math. You're going to see it is absolutely correct. 6 days from the evening of the 15th would give you the 21st. You got me? Verse 23. And he said unto them, this is that which Yahuwah hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahuwah. Bake that which you will bake today, and seethe that which you shall seethe. That means boil what you shall boil. And that which remaineth over, lay up for you to be kept until the morning. All right, so from the 15th in the evening, there were 6 days that they gathered and they ate. They ate fried chicken and cornbread every day. And then on the 6th day, they were to gather twice as much so that they can lay up for the Sabbath. The 6th day would have led you from the 15th, 6 working days would be the 21st. He said, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahuwah. So what day would that have been? The 22nd. Hold it. How does the Sabbaths work when Yahuwah counts the days? The 8th. They started on the 15th, and the 22nd, and the 29th. All right, let's do the count. 1. They arrived on the 15th in the wilderness of Sin. That is a fact. That's what the scripture says. 2. No food or preparation for the Sabbath, which is on the 14th in the evening. How does the Father count the days? They were traveling on the 14th. When the evening came, that was the 15th. That's how it works. The evening and the morning were the first day. So the way we count the days is through the evening. So they stopped their travels on the 15th. I wonder why did they do that? Because Moses probably told them it's the Sabbath. We can't go any further. We have to stop right here where we're at. Doesn't that give you reason to start murmuring and being angry? You could not boil. You could not bake. You could not prepare. The only thing you can do is just lie down under the stars and wait for the next day so that you can start either your travels again or look for food. 3. No food was rained down till the evening of the 15th, dawning towards the first day of the week. How do we know that? Because Moses and Aaron spoke to the people on the 15th, and he says, in the evening, Yahuwah is going to rain down bread for you. 4. He told them that they are to gather for 6 days. So they gathered for 6 days, and on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much fried chicken and cornbread. What day would that be? The 21st. 5. The next Sabbath would be on what? The 22nd. If the model that I showed you before with King David is correct, you have the 8th day there. And even if it's not absolutely perfect or correct, it's still closer to the way Yahuwah counts the days than how the Europeans count the days. I say it is correct. Why? Because they started from the new moon. And according to the lunisolar way of counting the days, you have your new moons and you have your 6 working days, then you have your Sabbath, which would be on the 8th day. That's how I came to that conclusion. And I showed you some models. I showed you when the showbread is to be replaced and when they were taking it away and all of those things. So we got the 8th day. Then you see they stopped in the wilderness of sin on the 15th day. They didn't go any further because it was a Sabbath day. So we got the 15th day also. He didn't feed them on the 15th day. He waited to the evening of the 15th when it was dawning towards the first day of the week. Then they counted their 6 working days, their 6 gathering days. And on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much to store up for the next day, which would be what? The 22nd. So you got the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd. All of these dates are on the lunisolar way of counting the days. Check it for yourself, brothers and sisters. You're not going to find the weekly Sabbath that we have today where it flows from month to month, week to week, year to year. You're not going to find it in the Bible. You're going to find that the only thing that they did was start their months by the new moon. It's everywhere in the scriptures. But yet, it's forgotten. Didn't Jubilee say that we would forget these new moons and Sabbaths? Do you think that he sent his prophets to speak to us about this and, it didn't have any weight? This is the path that's going to lead you back to him. If you want to have that sign, that mark in your forehead that you belong to him, you have to be synchronized with his days, not the Gregorian days. Come on, brothers and sisters. Wake up. Continue to part 11. Shalom.